Michael Afton is the main protagonist of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, particularly the Click Team era of the lore. He is the son of William Afton and the brother of the crying child and Elizabeth Afton. Since his debut, the character has been mostly shrouded in mystery. However, I do think behind all of that is a well-written protagonist. This video will delve into all of Mike's appearances and his personality, all versions of the character, and finally a list of every single theory regarding Mike. Well, the ones I can find at least. Now with all this in mind, grab your popcorn and exotic butters, and let's start this video. In FNaF 1, we are introduced to Mike Schmidt, who is the protagonist of the game. We didn't know much about him back in 2014, however later installments showed that this was Michael Afton under a fake last name. The reason for this is that in FNaF 4, you play as Mike because of the nightmare Freddy being drawn by him in the logbook. And in FNaF 4, you can hear a distorted and reversed version of the FNaF 1 Night 1 phone call by Ralph. Also, the nightmares parallel their FNaF 1 counterparts in terms of behaviour. For example, Nightmare Chica attacks from the right and can be heard in the kitchen, which is the same behaviour as their FNaF 1 counterpart. So yeah, Mike Schmidt is Michael Afton, and this is probably the most believed and liked FNaF theory, to be honest. Anyways, what we know is that he worked there for 7 nights and was fined for tampering with the animatronics, general unprofessionalism, and odour. There have been a decent amount of theories in order to explain his appearance in FNaF 1. Some believe he was there under William's orders, as in this location, William supposedly asked Mike to put Elizabeth back together, meaning it could be implied William gave Mike orders before. Others believe he was there for heroic reasons, or bro was just there for the money. In FNaF 2, we are introduced to a guy named Fritz Smith after beating the custom night. He is fined for similar reasons to Mike, which are tampering with the animatronics and odour. However, I don't think Fritz is Michael Afton. Firstly, the firing reasons are most likely meta and don't mean anything, as you, the player, are tampering with the AI, i.e. the animatronics. And also, the odour is there because the player is, well, sweating, as these Fortnite kids say, since it's the hardest challenge in the game. Also, Smith is the most common last name in the United States, so Scott could just be using a last name for arbitrary reasons. In FNaF 3, we are met with the Fright Guard, whose identity is still debated heavily to this day. A lot of people think he's Mike, however I don't think so, but it could be likely due to that Foxy in the logbook in the FNaF 3 office. Although I think Hudson is way more likely due to secret mix showing that Tails takes place in another timeline, yet Edwin, Fiona and David all carried over to the games from Tails, so logic could be applied to Hudson from Fazbear Frights, since he is the Fright Guard in the story What We Found, which is a retelling of FNaF 3. Furthermore, the Springtrap cutscene from Sith's location implies Mike will find his father after the events of FNaF 3, e.g. Pizzeria Simulator. As Mike says, I'm going to come find you, and then Springtrap emerges from the side. I'll probably make a video on the Fright Guard debate at some point in the future, which will delve deeper into it, so stay tuned for that. In FNaF 4, the protagonist of the night gameplay segments is almost definitely Michael Afton, as for reasons stated earlier. He seems to be having these nightmares based on a number of things, such as his experience at the FNaF 1 location, and probably the Bite of 83 due to Nightmare Fredbear. The nightmares are probably caused by Shadow Freddy, who is Nightmare. Mike survives all 8 nights, and it's implied they stop after. However, this game gives us a deeper look at Mike's character and basically his origin story, because in the FNaF 4 minigames, it's shown to us that he was a cruel teenager and constantly bullied his little brother, the crying child, back in 1983. Mike would lock him in his room, scare him from either underneath the bed or from the TV, with his Foxy mask. He also locks him in the back room of Fredbear's family diner. However, on the day of the party, Mike, now alongside his friends, bully CC more and take him to the Fredbear animatronic. They shove him in Fredbear's mouth, but then Fredbear chomps down on CC's skull, critically injuring him, and then he later dies from it. As you can see from Mike's expression afterwards, which goes from laughing to a look of horror, he deeply regrets his actions, and this is further reinforced when you see Mike saying, "Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry." We know this is Mike due to the text being the same colour as his own, and well, who else would it be? Peter Griffin? Michael Afton is confirmed to be the protagonist of this location. In the game, Mike survives very deadly scenarios, such as surviving the Biddy Babs, Ballora, Phantom Freddy in the breaker room, Phantom Foxy, being placed in a Springlock suit, etc, etc, etc. After each of the nights, well besides night 3, the player sees Mike eating popcorn whilst watching Immortal and the Restless, and according to the Survival Logbook, Mike seems to relate to Clara from the show. More on the logbook later. On the last night of Mike at Circus Baby's entertainment rentals, he is led to a scooping room by Ennard, where he's then, you guessed it, scooped. And off screen, Ennard goes into his body and uses him as basically a skin suit. After this, Sis Location Custom Night was released, which is not canon, however the cutscenes are. In a few of the cutscenes after beating a preset challenge are very hard, we see Michael walking down the street being greeted by the neighborhood, suggesting he is popular in this part of Hurricane, Utah. However, the more you beat these preset challenges, the more Michael's sprite design deteriorates due to his body literally rotting because of Ennard inside him, and well, the scooper killed him. On the final cutscene, Ennard aborts for Mike, however presumably due to the leftover remnant on the scooper, as implied in the FNaF 6 blueprints, Michael stands up, ready to take down his father, once and for all. After beating Golden Freddy mode in the Sister Location Custom Night, you are greeted with this cutscene and Michael Afton's official voice.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you.
This cutscene sets up the next game, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. In Pizzeria Simulator, it's basically confirmed Mike is the player, as Molten Freddy says, "Together again!" after killing Mike, which will be a reference to when Edward was inside him. Furthermore, Afton knows the protagonist.
You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, it's still me.
Also, Henry says in his speech that the protagonist is right where he wants to be while everyone is burning, which would be strange if the player was just a random guy. And also, the dislocation cutscene that was in a Pizza Sim would just be for nothing. Yes, this segment is from that YouTube short I made, just consider it foreshadowing for this video. Now, what do we learn about Mike in this game? Not that much to be honest, considering he doesn't even speak or do anything. Yeah, this is why I'm not a fan of Mike in FFPS, because Scott just did bro dirty. What we can infer though is that Mike took the job as manager, which wasn't intended for him as stated by Henry. Mike then salvages Scrap Chap, Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby and Lefty, and once you beat 96, Henry traps everyone in his labyrinth and cooks one of the best speeches of the 21st century, and then everyone dies in the fire, including Michael, ending his story. However, there's still a lot to discuss. In Midnight Motorist, we play as William Afton as confirmed by 5 laps at Freddy's. Mike is in a minigame, either as the runaway or the couch person. If he's the runaway, he breaks out his window due to probably what caused the animatronic footprints, and runs to that place again, which most Mike Runaway believers interpret as Mike running to the mound where they believe CC's body resides. If he's the couch person, he is defending CC by telling William he's had a rough day and to leave him alone. This will further prove he always did care about his brother regardless. Another thing regarding Mike in Pizza Sim, in Lefty's rare screen in the alleyway, there is a poster of a man holding a puppet that looks identical to him. Alongside the man is a clown and a bear. This has been interpreted as depicting the Afton family, with William as the man, Michael as the puppet, Elizabeth as the clown, and CC as the bear. What this tells us is that it further reinforces that Mike looks like his father, and could also imply that William used Mike to do things for his bidding, hence holding like a puppet. After Pizza Sim released, the Survival Logbook came out a few weeks later and is packed with Michael Afton content. Firstly, it can be seen that Michael's the previous owner of the logbook, and we know it's him due to the dislocation related drawings by him, such as the casual bongos and exotic butters, which he doesn't seem to like the latter. However, the logbook gives a pretty good insight on his personality. To start, he seems to love money, as he draws a bag of money next to his drawings of the exotic butters and says how he wants the money and not the butters. He also draws himself on a dream vacation somewhere tropical, water skiing or a bag of money. Mike also seems to have a dark sense of humour, and is probably a guy who always jokes around and acts sarcastic, as on page 32, there's a question that says, what would your life look in 5 years? And he responds with a gravestone. Furthermore, he seems to joke about the bite of 83, as on page 99, there is a misunderstanding prompt that says, my child said Freddy bit him, and Mike responds with, he tripped and fell on Freddy's teeth. Not our fault. This is most likely Mike using humour as a way to cope from that night, and not actually him joking about it in a bad way. Going back to the joking around point, he writes several humorous statements, such as on page 87, next to Napoleon Bonnie. Mike writes down for the glory of pizza. Also, he crosses out most of the success words and says survival instead. Mike also draws himself and Freddy in the book a couple times as a hero/enemy relationship, such as on page 73, Mike draws himself as a superhero, shooting lasers from his eyes at Freddy, similar to how Superman does it. Mike also draws himself locking up Freddy, however there is a love heart on the lock, implying he probably cares about Freddy and by extension the spirit inside the animatronic, who is Gabriel. This would mean he probably cares about the other spirits as well. Speaking of love hearts, on page 16, Mike draws 3 love hearts, which could imply he cares for someone post-dislocation. On page 30, there is a question that says, list your favourite characters from movies, books and television, who showed bravery in the face of extreme obstacles. Can you relate your current experiences to their heroic journeys? And Mike responds with, Clara from The Immortal and the Restless, because everything about this place is crazy, and no one seems to notice except me, which basically debunks that Mike is represented by the baby in The Immortal and the Restless. Mike also chews gum excessively, which he considers a bad habit. On page 37, Mike writes under workout suggestions, run 5 miles, run even faster, and take a self-defense class. This can imply he does exercise. However, it could just be a joke by him regarding running away from the pizzeria and taking self-defense classes so he can fight the animatronics. The last important thing about Mike from the logbook is on page 6. There's a question that says, lists 10 reasons why applying to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza seemed like a good idea at the time. And Mike responds with, employees get free pizza, which some people use this to say he worked at Freddy's in 1993 due to wanting free pizza. However, he could just be joking. Plus, if he was there to Mike accomplice or Mike hero, he wouldn't write down his true intentions, such as, oh, I'm working with my father's company animatronics, or, oh, I'm here to free the spirits. Before you say, I believe this Survival Logbook is probably meta, as it just doesn't fit anyone in a timeline. Anyways, with appearances and personality out the way, let's discuss all the versions of Michael Afton. Mike Schmidt is the main protagonist of the FNaF movie, and it's pretty clear he's an alternate version of Michael Afton since M. Afton used the name Mike Schmidt as an alias in FNaF 1. However, there are differences. Firstly, he's probably not an Afton in the film continuity, but who knows. Next, his little brother Garrett is kidnapped and then later killed by William, which differentiates from the games where Michael is responsible for his brother's death accidentally. Mike also has a sister named Abby instead of Elizabeth. I'm assuming everyone who's watching this video has seen the FNaF movie already, so I don't need to do a recap of the entire film. Just know he's a character riddled with guilt over his past and believes in a dream theory in order to change it. However, by the end of the film, when Abby's life is on the line, and due to Mike being tricked by the spirits, he begins to accept that he can't change the past and that he should focus on the future, and with Abby. The next version of Mike comes from the scrapped Fazbear Fright story You're the Band. I won't delve too deep in the story as it won't do it justice because it's a pretty good story to be honest. I recommend giving it a read if you haven't already. So basically a little summary. In the story, which takes place 30 years after the missing children incident, so around 2015, Mike is described as a college-age man in his early 20s, which is place of birth around mid to late 90s. Yeah, Scott defo messed up on the ages as always, lol. Anyways, Mike is looking for a Freddy mask that was stolen a few weeks prior to the events of the story. The mask makes its way into Sylvia's hands after she purchased it on eBay by an unknown seller who was probably the same guy who stole it. Nevertheless, she gets it for her son Timmy, who's in a Freddy's phase, but once he wears the mask, shit just starts happening. After Timmy's party, Mike tries to find it by acting like he lost his dog, however it doesn't work. Timmy and Sylvia then leave to her father's house, which makes it easier for Mike to break into her house and retrieve the Freddy mask. Afterwards, Freddy finds Sylvia and sees Timmy getting lured away by a shadowy figure. They then go to Freddy's where they see Timmy on the stage and then the puppet appears and traps Sylvia. Mike then saves Sylvia and Timmy and they run out the pizzeria, and Mike says to them to not speak about the incident. Mike has garnered many theories due to his enigmatic nature. Here's a list of pretty much all of them and what they are. Big thanks to the FNaF Theories wiki for most of these theories. Afton's HD. The theory that the drowning ended in FNaF world shows Michael, Cece and Elizabeth having their happiest day and watching TV. Auction theory. The theory that Mike bought items from the auction from FNaF 3, which were haunted by Shadow Freddy, and later caused the FNaF 4 nightmares. Dual protagonist theory. The theory that Michael Afton is the player of every single night gameplay segment, and Cassidy is the player of the minigames. This theory was created by Gibby's Horror Homestead. Duo Dreamer. The theory that both Michael Afton and the Crying Child are the protagonists of the night gameplay segments of FNaF 4. FNaF 4 Agony. The theory that the FNaF 4 nightmares are all a manifestation of Michael Afton's experiences from the Bite of 83 to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Under this theory, CC is Nightmare, and also the Nightmare animatronics are Agony beings. FNaF 4 1983. The theory that Michael Afton is having the FNaF 4 nightmares in 1983. FNaF 4 1993. The theory that Michael Afton is having the FNaF 4 nightmares in 1993 while during FNaF 1. FNaF 4 2023. The theory that Michael Afton is having the FNaF 4 nightmares in 2023 during FNaF 3. Follow Victim. The theory that after the Bite of 83, CC latched onto Mike and followed him around until his death in Pizza Sim. Fright Guard Duo. The theory that both Mike and Hudson are the protagonists of FNaF 3. This theory was created by YouTuber Zedarox. Glam Mike. The theory that Michael Afton possesses Glam Rock Freddy. Help 1 and 2 protagonist Mike. The theory that Michael Afton is the main protagonist for Help 1 and 2. Logbook 2015. The theory that Michael Afton uses the logbook in the year 2015 at Fazbear's Fright. Logbook 2017. The theory that Michael Afton uses the logbook in 2017 at Fazbear's Fright. Logbook 23. The theory that Michael Afton uses the logbook in 2023 at Fazbear's Fright. Logbook Plex. The theory that Michael Afton uses the logbook during the Pizzaplex era. Michael FNaF 1. The theory that Michael Afton is Mike Schmidt. This is pretty much confirmed as reasons stated earlier. Michael Oldest. The theory that Mike is the oldest child of William Afton. This is basically confirmed. Mike Accomplice. The theory that Michael Afton is working for William during FNaF 1 and also FNaF 2 if you believe he's Fritz. Mike Adopted. The theory that Mike is not biologically William's son and is adopted. Michael. The theory that Mike is the protagonist for every FNaF game from FNaF 1 to FFPS. Mike Beth. The joke theory that Michael Afton is Elizabeth Afton. Mike Bot. The theory that Michael Afton is a robot. Mike Both. The theory that both Foxy Bro and Cece are both called Mike. Mike Bro. The theory that Michael Afton is the Foxy Bro from FNaF 4. This is basically confirmed as by Security Breach, as the Afton staff bot table shows Mike and Cece as separate people, and the week before reinforces this by confirming Cece is in Golden Freddy. Mike CEO. The theory that Mike is the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment post FFPS. Mike Clone. The joke theory that Michael Afton is a clone of his father. This was created by the Unwithered Truth for April Fool's Day. Mike Corpse. The theory that Michael Afton is the corpse that Burntrap wears in Security Breach. Mike Couch. The theory that Mike is the couch person in Midnight Motorist. Mike Dreamer. the theory that Mike is the protagonist of the FNaF 4 night gameplay segments. This is basically confirmed for reasons stated earlier. Mike Emily, the debunked theory that Mike is part of the Emily family. Mike Experiments, the theory that Mike was brought through the experiments in William's bunker. Mike FFPS, the theory that Mike is the protagonist of Pizzeria Simulator. This is confirmed for reasons stated earlier. Mike 3, the theory that Mike set up Happiest Day to 3D MCI. Mike Fritz, the theory that Michael Afton is Fritz Smith from FNaF 2. Mike Guard, the theory that Mike is the protagonist of FNaF 3. Mike Hero, the theory that Michael Afton becomes a hero after the Bite of 3 as a way of redeeming himself. Mike Jeremy, the theory that Mike is Jeremy Fitzgerald from FNaF 2. Mike Killer, the debunked theory that Mike is responsible for the missing children incident. Mike Neither, also known as Mike Forth, is the theory that Michael Afton is neither Foxy Bro or Cece. Due to the Afton staff bot table showing only 3 Afton kids, this theory is basically debunked. Mike Not, the theory that under Mike Victim, Cece latches onto Foxy Bro and possesses him. Mike OMC, the theory that Mike is Old Man Consequences. Mike Revival, the theory that under Mike Victim, Mike comes back to life after the Bite of 83. Mike Runaway, the theory that Michael Afton is the runaway in Midnight Motorist. Mike Survival, the theory that Michael Afton survived Henry's fire in FFPS and is currently stood around the Steelwall era. Mike Toyshink, the theory that Mike is the one you should not have killed from Ultimate Custom Night. Mike Trap, the debunked theory that Michael Afton is Springtrap. Mike UCN, the theory that Mike is the protagonist of UCN. Mike UK, the theory that Michael Afton was born and raised in the United Kingdom before moving to Utah. Mike Utah, the theory that Mike was born and raised in the state of Utah. Mike Victim, the theory that Michael Afton is the crying child. This theory is basically debunked by the week before. Purple Michael, the confirmed theory that Michael Afton is the protagonist of FNaF's Sis location. Vanessa Mike, the theory that Vanessa from the FNaF movie is a parallel to Michael Afton. So, what's next for Mike? Well, we don't really know since he's barely mentioned nowadays and he's never in merch. As I said earlier, there is a theory that Mike survived the FNaF 6 fire, and people think this because of the M. Afton email and his room in Security Breach. However, the M. Afton email was scrapped, and Security Breach is such a mess I don't even know what that room is meant to be honest. So, Mike's survival is unlikely. There is a FNaF Ticket to Fun kit which has a guard with a purple uniform on that could be Mike. We just have to wait and see until September. Anyways, hope everyone enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe. You can always change your mind in the future. With that being said, I'll see everyone on the flip side. Goodbye!